Yes, good morning. Start another week for me. And I was thinking, what could I talk about today on this fragrance drive along? Because, I've talked about my fragrances of the year, done a few spray offs, but I've put on a fragrance today already, so I can't do a decision between two. So, I was at the gym the other day, and I saw some big news, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen this, and it's the perfect thing to talk about today, because it involves the fragrance industry, but mainly the fashion industry. Prada has bought Versace for £1.4 billion. This is a big story. It's Prada's biggest acquisition, and they've never spent this much money. And it's a big story for two reasons. One is because Prada are kind of seen as this more refined, a little bit more minimalist, a bit more classy type brand. And then Versace is kind of the opposite. It's kind of like the eccentric younger brother that is a bit of a rebel, likes to go for a bit more out there, a bit more daring, a bit more vibrant in its appeal. So it's quite a contrast. It's certainly two very different sort of strategies between the businesses over the years. But Prada have decided that Versace was worth the buy, and now they've bought it. And really what I want to talk about today is, what does that mean for fragrances, obviously, most importantly. Why have they done this, and where do I think it'll go? So just a little bit of background. I have got a bit of paper here that tells me a little bit of info, but Versace has essentially been owned under this stable called Capri Holdings, and Capri Holdings have essentially been responsible. They've got Jimmy Choo, they've got Michael Kors, so they've got some pretty big brands already under their watch, and obviously Versace was a big one. But it doesn't sound like it's been going too well over the last few years. Now, this isn't just to do with fragrances, this is obviously to do with fashion and clothing. But yeah, there's been a lot of misses from what I gather, and I think Prada's looked at it, saw an opportunity as well, and thought, well, Versace, look, it's a very recognisable brand. Let's be honest, we all know Versace, and I think they saw an opportunity and they took it, and obviously they've spent the big bucks to get it. So the guy who's running Prada at the moment, he will now be in charge of the operations. Prada have essentially said for the next 3 years, nothing's going to particularly change. They're not going to make any more acquisitions, they're not looking to buy anyone else. They're going to work on improving and changing, probably, and repackaging, let's probably say the best word, Versace as a brand, so it might look a little bit different. They've also said, and I think this is really important, and I think this is going to be really key for fragrances, they don't really want to, they don't want to sort of mask what Versace is. They don't want to suddenly get rid of the brand itself, its image. They want to keep the image, and they want to celebrate the image a little bit more, and they see it as a complementary brand, not something they want to get rid of and just make it all Prada, essentially. So I think you'll still see Versace. I don't think it's going to change in terms of, particularly in the next year and a half, I don't think you'll notice a huge amount of difference. I think a lot of the fragrances, a lot of the clothing will be very much the same. So yes, I was just looking, Lorenzo Bertelli is the executive chairman now for it, and he's going to put his full focus on Versace for the next 3 years. So that's that bit. It's very hard to talk and drive while you're trying to read notes. Probably not a good idea, but there is quite a lot of traffic this morning, because I'm a little bit later. So, why have they done this? Why have Prada, though, other than the fact that they maybe have jumped on an opportunity with Versace struggling, why have they seen this as a potential thing to do? Well, I think for me, if I said right now what fragrance or what countries are the best for fragrances in terms of brands, you'd always say Italy for me, with Acqua di Parma. For me, that's my favourite citrus brand. But obviously you've got Prada, Versace, they're just brilliant. They are absolutely brilliant. And then you've got the French perfumers, and you've got things like Gucci, Mugler, of course. And I think for me, or from what I gather, they see the French fashion business, or the industry in general, in terms of perfumery as well, just the French are doing it better. They're obviously doing better in marketing, and I think what Prada wants to do is they want to streamline everything. Prada are obviously doing very well. I think if we can get Versace on board, we can help grow our industry, and I think that's what they've chosen to do there. So I think they're just trying to reboot the system, and yeah, that's that's the main thing, isn't it? They want to be the best, and when they've obviously been successful and they're getting this competition from abroad, they want to try and, we're the people they want to try and change their mind. Do I buy Prada over a lot of French ones? No, I don't think I've really owned many Prada. So I suppose the next question is, what does this all mean for us, the consumers, now? Because obviously you can see from a business point of view, but ultimately we want to know how it affects us. Now, I think one of the main things that's going to happen with this is they're going to remove a lot of flankers. This is something that's been reported. I think, look, Versace Eros, Versace the Dreamer, these are iconic scents. There's been flankers of some of these. Obviously you've had blue jeans as well in the past. I think the main ones that we're talking about there will stay. I think they're going to get rid of a lot of unsuccessful flankers, because, let's be honest, what's the point of keeping flankers that aren't doing very well? I think Eros Flame will probably stay. But I think you're going to get more hero or legacy scents, essentially, where they'll just stay exactly the same. You won't notice any difference. They'll just be owned and made by Prada. But you'll see a lot of these flankers that will go in time. So my opinion is, if you like certain flankers from Versace, maybe it's a good time to stock up, because they're going to become, one, rare and obviously discontinued, and actually you can make a bit of money. We've seen people who have got these old school discontinued fragrances making a fortune because you can't get them anywhere else. So just be aware of that. And I would say to clone houses now, take advantage of this. Take advantage of the fact that you might actually be able to clone a fragrance that could be discontinued, and you will get a lot of sales. So that's something I would definitely do if I had a clone house. There's not any Versace scents I can particularly think of that I really, really want. I think, as I said, I think the main ones will still stay. And I think we've got to remember as well, a lot of these brands, I'm saying this sounds like a big deal, and it is obviously a big deal, it's a big bit of money. But Bentley fragrances, which are iconic themselves, I believe are made by Lalique. So it's not that these things haven't happened before. It happens all the time. It really does. And I believe, obviously, Estee Lauder do the Aramis fragrances. This is just another one. This is just probably a bigger one on a stronger financial scale. So, I don't see Prada going too much away from what other brands have done. Bentley for Men Intense, you don't go, oh, that's the Lalique for Men Intense, do you? They keep the same marketing. So I don't think anything's going to particularly change too much in that sense. I think one of the biggest concerns is what is going to happen to things like Eros. Are they going to reformulate it? How are they going to do that? Are they going to, keep it the same? And I get that concern, because some people, these are your favourite scents. These could be your signature scents, and I hate it. I've had so many fragrances I've absolutely loved that have gone. I think one of the best ones, it's not one I own, but it's one that I got my brother, was a Zaro Pour Homme Intense. But a lot of Mugler fragrances in particular have gone over the years, and it's such a shame, because Pure Havane was one of the best night out fragrances you could own. It was amazing. It was just a sweet cherry tobacco, and it's the sort of scent that everyone is looking for, and it was better than most of them. There was a cheap one I used to own called Leonidas, which was a really old school smell, which I hated. It wasn't a nice smell. It smelled like wheat. It was horrible. It wasn't nice. But I appreciated its strength, and now it's like 90 quid. I paid about £10. I think some people are selling it for over 200. So as I said, maybe if you're someone who likes collecting fragrances, maybe stock up on some Versace now, because it could be a little money maker. For me though, what do I want to see? What if I'm now the person, I've just spent £1.4 billion to acquire Versace, what would I do with fragrances? What would I like to see happen? Well, look, for me, Prada's the brand that does these lovely, clean, soapy smells. You know the smell of Prada. You look at some of the Pradas, and Prada Amber Pour Homme, Prada L'Homme. There's absolutely loads. I mean, you could list off so many, and obviously they've done flankers of those, like Low L'Homme or L'Homme Low. There's just loads. I think there's one that's called Intense, Prada L'Homme Intense, and there's a Black Amber as well. There's loads, and they've obviously gone into the blue fragrance thing with Prada Carbon, Prada Ocean, Luna Rossa. So there's loads. And then Versace's definitely done a bit of a mix between the two. They've gone into the fresh as well. They've gone into the blue fragrance, market like everyone else has. What I would like to do is I'd like to combine a fragrance. I'd like to almost cut both fragrance bottles in half here and call it Prada Alter Ego. Now, Prada L'Homme is this lovely soapy iris, lipsticky. People say it's like a bit of a washing smell. Great for an office. It's an office scent that I think a lot of men and, I think even some women actually say they really like that one. Because iris can be quite a feminine note, but it's obviously more of a men's fragrance. And then what I'd like them to do is maybe, as I said, have that bottle as half, and then have half a bottle of Eros and call it Alter Ego. So it's all one bottle, but it's separated by two atomizers and a bit of glass in between them. And the whole vibe of it would essentially be, you go to work in the morning with your Prada L'Homme on, so you spray that one, you take this bottle with you, and then you're going straight on to a night out. There's like Christmas parties and everything at the minute. So you go straight onto a night out, and then you spray Eros on yourself. So it's like two heads on one bottle essentially, which have two different fragrances in. And obviously it's the best of both worlds. It's the best of Prada, it's the best of Versace, and I just think that'd be a really great marketing point. Again, it's novelty, don't get me wrong, it's a bit gimmicky, but I could see people liking that. It's different. The bottle would appeal to me. I like both fragrances. So there's a lot of traffic today. So that's something I think I'd love Prada to do. But I actually think in general nothing's going to really change. I really don't. I think it's really just a case of jumping on the fact that a company was struggling. They've got some iconic scents, iconic fashion ranges, which are in contrast to ours. We're doing things right. Let's save that brand, because we know how much that brand is recognisable and it's got a lot of mass appeal. So if I also had this 1.4 billion, what else would I do to make Versace and Prada better than the French perfume as well? I think there's going to be new releases. I think there's going to be new, whether it's called Versace, I'm not sure, but there's going to be some sort of new releases from Prada over the next few years. I'm really interested to see if they release them under the name Versace. I just think they're going to keep a few hero scents. They're not going to do flankers of them anymore, and they'll just stay as that. But it'll be interesting, because as I said, Prada are very much, they like the fact that this Versace brand is so more eccentric, so different to what they are. I mean, I would personally, if it's me, I'd almost release a completely new Versace fragrance on it. I'd still call it Versace, because I think people like the name Versace. I wouldn't just call everything Prada, but maybe do a soapier version, maybe do a more modern version of Blue Jeans, maybe do a more modern version of the Dreamer, and take advantage of that, because they are brilliant, recognisable fragrances that people still buy. That's why they're still around. So I think they should, in some ways, continue flankers, but just get rid of the ones they've already got and bring a bit of Prada DNA to them. And you just don't know what that will do. You don't know what that will bring. And I'm really intrigued to see what the fashion industry looks like. How different will Versace look? Because it's certainly more statement. Yeah, it's more your confident personality. So I would certainly, so my ones would be a half and half a bottle of two iconic fragrances, one from Prada, one from Versace. I'd definitely also do a new Versace line with a bit more Prada DNA. And then my final one, what could I also do to elevate this brand again? What could we do to get it back? It's tough, isn't it? One thing I like of Versace, by the way, is the bottles. And I think Prada can learn a lot from being a bit more eccentric in that sense. And maybe that is why they've done this. My third one, what would I do? Do you know what? I'd open Prada Versace shops. Do you remember when Orange and O2, is it not O2, Orange and, or was it T-Mobile went to EE? I would keep the names Prada and Versace and have these Prada Versace sort of just beauty only shops. Boots have recently released beauty only shops. And I know fashion's probably, the clothing's pretty big and fragrance, but I'd have more fragrance only shops. I don't know many brands that do that. I know I've seen a few Creed shops that are pretty much just fragrances. But I think if you're trying to compete against your Gucci's and that, which obviously focus on clothing as well, open some more beauty shops. Fragrances are so popular. The business on fragrances is huge. Get some more celebrities. If you've got this much money, get some really big name celebrities to promote this brand, and you know, you're going to really elevate these fragrances. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. I've waffled on for a little bit here because there's so much traffic, but yeah, let me know your thoughts. What do you think about the acquisition, first of all? Do you think it's a good thing for the fragrance industry? Do you think that's going to bring Versace back? I didn't realise Versace was struggling particularly. And do you have a favourite sort of country of fragrance brands, essentially? For me, I think I've probably just edged the Italians, and hopefully this will get them back to the top again because of Acte de Parma I love. Do you prefer French perfumery? Is there other countries that you think they do some really good fragrances? Some that I really want to touch on this coming year is Issey Miyake. I've never had an Issey Miyake fragrance, and I think they're ones that get a bit of a mixed review, but I'd definitely like to try them. There's a few brands, even though I said today, I've mentioned Jimmy Choo and Michael Kors that are obviously owned by this same brand as Versace. Never owned them, so maybe they're a couple I want to try this year coming up. So yeah, let me know some brands from different countries, and maybe some niche ones that I've not heard of as well. I'd be really interested to hear. But yeah, my thoughts, it's a good deal. Look forward to seeing how it materialises over the next few years. I don't think anything's going to change too soon, but it'll be really interesting to see if the Versace brand is still very much, you know, visible to the public, or a Prada just going to make it all about Prada and Versace just goes into the background. But yeah, thank you very much for watching today. Still nowhere near work, but you've probably switched off by this stage, so if you're still here, thanks a lot, and I look forward to hearing your comments. Catch you in a bit.